God, look at us, on time.
Okay. The time is 7 o'clock, and this is the July 2024 meeting of the Urbana Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission. Do I have someone who can call the roll? Thank you.
Okay, Annie Adams,
Present.
Susan Jones,
Present.
Tommy Griscom.
Present.
I'm gonna say your name wrong.
Ms. Choshi? Yes, present.
Audrey Ishii,
Present.
Bruce Mickelson,
Present.
Keenan Portis,
Present.
Sartak Prasad, Nancy Westcott,
Present.
and I'm Carmen Franks. I'm filling in for John Zeman today.
Carmen, are you a city engineer also then?
I'm an assistant city engineer, yes.
What's your bailiwick, so to speak? What's your?
My discipline now is plans and studies, and our other assistant city engineer, Justin Swinford, who started about a month ago, is in the implementation. So he oversees more of our construction projects and our engineering technicians, and I oversee the engineers and more of our plans and studies. And
Thank you for
policies.
coming.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, we have any changes to the agenda? Does anybody have something they'd like to discuss tonight? We can't act on it, but we could hear an update or.
Could we discuss the, what was previously known as the Sage Trail, now new working title, Urbana Meander updates?
Okay, let's see, where would we put that in? Well, Sarthak is not going to be presenting tonight, obviously. Where would you like to put that? Do you have an idea?
No, I have no idea. I don't.
Is that unfinished?
It could be unfinished business. We could just put it in there.
Okay, how about right after the Safe Streets and Roads for All?
Yeah, that would
Okay.
be great.
Thank you. I'm sorry, we need a motion for that change in agenda.
I move to add that to the agenda.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, any opposed? Thank you, that passes. We have the minutes from the previous meeting. I had some changes for the April meeting because I noticed that, and I think if everyone's okay with it, we can probably go ahead and pass it. I noticed that it said that I had already contacted the city council to request a 20 mile per hour or a reduction in speed limit, and I had not. So I went ahead and went through here and added a few things. We could just put this on the next agenda rather than go through it all, if we'd rather. Okay, then the May minutes, which Bruce Mickelson was kindly took the draft of. I thought those minutes looked okay. What did you think? Okay, can we have a motion to approve the May minutes and put the April minutes off till the next meeting?
I so move. I'll second that.
Okay, everyone in agreement, please say yes.
Aye.
Same, and opposed, same sign? Okay, thank you. Those minutes are approved, and we'll look at the April minutes in August. And we'll be almost getting caught up, I think, which is good. Next item is the public input. We don't have a public, so Commissioner Communications. Anyone have anything to? I had something that I forgot. Wasn't that important? Well, maybe you can put it in the announcements if you think of it.
Cool. Well, I had a couple small things. I know Sartak's not here, but I wanted to compliment a couple of things I've observed on campus the past few weeks. The first was that there's some repavement or repaving that has been completed, and crossing as a cyclist now on some of the streets where the repaving has been done is really nice. Before there was usually a bump of some kind, and now it's very smooth, so I'm very happy about that. I want to just give that shout out to whoever was responsible for the repaving. That was very nice. And then also, I remember... oh, yeah, go
Exactly,
ahead.
where exactly is this wonderful pavement?
I'm blanking on the streets because I don't actually know the street names in that area very well. What is the street that goes along Bread Company? That good one, yeah, good one. And then whatever street that tees up with Oregon. That goes by the cornfield. Gregory. Okay. So those have been repaved, and when they did the repaving, they brought it up exactly level to where the sidewalk comes down for the cyclists. So yeah, that's very nice.
And some nice crosswalks too, which look great. They
Yep.
repainted those. It looks great and works great.
And then in addition to that, I know he mentioned that they were taking out discarded bicycles. And there was one in particular, which I think I had mentioned had been bothering me at the bicycle rack at CDL, and it was removed. So I'm very pleased. So that's it for me.
I also have something to share. I recently found a group called CU Girls Who Walk. It's an organization led by a group of girls who just encourage people to go out, take a walk in all our parks, neighborhood, shop in our coffee shops. I went to their walking event once. It was really healthy and really great to connect with people during the summer. So yeah, let's check this out.
How do people get in contact or find out about
They
this?
have an Instagram page. It's CU Girls Who Walk. It's usually after work, like after 5 or 6, and go for a walk for maybe half an hour or 1 hour in a park. They have an Instagram page. They post their calendars every month.
I can add on to that. CU Girls Who Walks is based on an idea that happened in Chicago. Women get together and they meet up and they go for a walk, and it's really lovely. It's like, it can often be a group of like 20 women all ambling about, and I'm going to use the word amble because they will be at 8 o'clock this Saturday morning meeting up on the co-op's front porch to do the Urbana Amble, which is the Front Yard Garden and Art Tour. And that is from sunup to sundown, July 20th and 21st. And we can talk more about that in announcements. But they are a great organization, and it's really exciting to see what they're up to and the work they're doing. So it's very cool. And it's just so cool to see these women feeling very comfortable walking around, and they'll just like, we're gonna walk around Crystal Lake Park. And they like post the map of like, it's a 2-mile walk, it's a 3-mile walk. And then it's also just a nice social group. So I'm so happy it's here.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that group that used to exist called Take Back the Night, I think, where people were going ahead and saying, we're not going to be afraid to walk around at night, although unfortunately that's still a vision that's not completely fulfilled.
I'd also like, as an announcement, I'd like to say, I biked up to the swimming pool at Crystal Lake Park, and first off, for those of you who have not used the swimming pool or gotten there at 7 o'clock in the morning to do lap swim, highly recommend it. Did it once and we'll be doing it again. But that bike path going all the way up to the park is just absolutely fantastic. It's my first time using it as a cyclist. I've run on it, but I've never done the complete path. And it's a game changer, and I really appreciate all the money and all the work and the grants that went into getting that done. It's really awesome. And then I would love, for a future topic, I'm going to ask about the when the paths are going to come through Crystal Lake Park for cyclists, but we can do that can be a future topic. But I just want to say I'm loving that bike path up Broadway and adjacent to Broadway coming in there and up. It's great. Oh, and just another announcement, I guess, and it'll probably be a future topic. It doesn't have to be a future topic if someone can answer my question. Does anyone know where the giant blue bike rack is that the city owns?
You ask that every month, we still don't know.
Oh, we still don't know where that is. Let's make that a future topic.
I thought that was found last year.
it was too. I thought it was installed somewhere.
Okay. I'd like to recognize that Marcus Ricci, is here from planning. Is it from planning? And just give him the opportunity to.
Good to be here. You're doing lots of good planning-related things, and that's when I come.
Do you know where the blue bike rack is?
I will work with Public Works and figure out if planning or Public Works knows where it is.
Thank you. Okay. Any others?
Yes, I have an announcement.
Yes.
This Thursday from 5:30 to 7 p.m., the Urbana Park District will be hosting an open house for Weaver and Prairie Parks master planning. So if you would like to see some display boards and talk to some designers, please, you're welcome, and we'd love to see you there. Dr. Preston Williams.
Audrey, this is sort of in parallel to the announcement thing. You sent out an email yesterday or today with a link to ordinances having to do with e-bikes. It looks like the Urbana server wouldn't let it open up. Can you summarize what that was?
Oh, it was, Chicago's been working on a proposed ordinance. I believe the state of Illinois has been also, but I didn't get an update on that. The one I had was for Chicago. And they had a draft ordinance, but the ordinance did not meet expert review because it was missing specific brand names or certifications that should be included. It was a draft ordinance that then wasn't taken up by city council yet.
Having to do with batteries or?
Yes,
Okay,
the
right,
battery
right.
safety, specifically what kind of batteries they want to allow. The certification for batteries, yeah.
And this is moving so fast. There's been stuff in the Wall Street Journal at times about battery developments, which will make them considerably faster to charge up and also safer, less likely to explode. So the galaxy is moving.
Right, and I sent an article out shortly after our May meeting that was about the state legislatures that are trying to catch up with this around the country because there have been a number of tragic fires, yeah.
Thank you.
And I understand that John did reach out to the fire department and was not able to find a speaker for this meeting, I'm assuming, yeah. Do they think they may come in the future or, well, perhaps you have an update on that when you,
I'm not sure. I thought he had heard from them that they were interested in coming, but he didn't get confirmation on this meeting.
I see, okay, thank
I
you.
will add, if you have questions on battery safety, my husband is in the energy storage safety industry. He works for a German company right now, but he used to work for NEMA, the National Electrical Manufacturers Association, that certified batteries.
Do you have your speaker on?
Oh, yeah, I'm just sitting pretty far away.
Okay.
So if you have specific questions on battery safety, I'd be happy to relay those to him and have him even come speak here if you were interested.
That would be awesome. Mhm.
He also used to work with former firefighters that tested batteries, so.
And perhaps someone from the fire department could attend also to learn from him. Sounds like it would be a real opportunity.
Yeah, because big picture, what we're curious about is just how are we going to start developing standards? What's going to happen is the industry is going to have to start developing standards for bike batteries. Right now, there's just a lot of batteries out there that are bad actors, and then there's a lot of batteries that are great actors, and it's sort of holding back the industry because, for example, students would like to bring their bikes maybe into their dorm room, but they are told, they can't. I don't even think they can bring an actual regular bike in. But it's that's sort of the question, is how do you make sure that you're not bringing, a battery that will blow up and into, am I phrasing that correctly?
Yeah, well, we're an advisory group. We're trying to figure out how to coordinate with the city on getting the word out for people to be careful. And see if we can come up maybe down the line with some kind of consistent regulations, ordinances with regard to batteries in living spaces. I mean, there are people at the university who are very worried about somebody bootlegging a scooter with a bad battery into a residence hall. And right now, it's all over the place. The British rail system has banned e-scooters from the trains. But on the Paris Metro, people are folding them up and bringing them on, crowded line 1 and line 4. And so,
Please speak into the microphone.
all right, well, didn't have much to say.
It's,
Just
I
talking
know,
about how
I know
much
that someone who
vertigo there is
doesn't
out
attend the meeting is working on the minutes, and she's finding it difficult when she can't hear, so we should try, since she's not able to attend.
My apologies.
Okay, and I have one small item, which I guess I'll speak to here because it doesn't fit anywhere else. We're always wondering what's the latest data, and RPC does have a crash dashboard. If you look for RPC crash dashboard, you would get to it, but the data is only through 2022, so it's been quality assured. So it takes quite a while, it's always behind. And this is just an overlook for the state and also mentions the county. It says it's as of 7/15, but of course it's dependent on when it received data from the localities. And I have the URL is there if anyone wanted to see. If anybody just is reading something and wants a quick update on how many fatalities do we have a year, this shows them for Champaign County. It's running around 20 a year perhaps. It looks like we're behind this year, but that might just be reporting. And also it shows where the fatal crashes occur, which is super interesting that city streets have such a huge proportion of it. You can see interstates are very safe. This is one of the triumphs of traffic engineering is interstate safety. It's relatively very safe, and then there's the rural roads are down there, but it's first to city streets, which especially includes Stroads. That I know is about 50% of fatalities is Stroads. Then and does everyone know what Stroads are? It's a combination streets roads. It's kind of the arterials that are usually 4 lanes or above, where they're trying to get people to move fast, but they also have a lot of businesses or residences on them. That's where people are getting killed completely out of proportion to the amount of mileage. It's only 10% of our road stock, but it's like 50% of our fatalities. You can also see the one that shows what they were, motorcyclists, pedestrians, semi-trucks, and so on, is missing the cars. Apparently, you can just assume the rest is cars, because the top adds up to the total, but the bottom does not. The bottom is missing the cars. They just have what the PEDs are, which is running around 20% of total fatalities for the state. And we know that. It shows PEDs are 102, and the total fatalities in that year were 593. So it's less, maybe 15 to 18%, somewhat less. And then below is there's a link there on that page that takes you to the fatal crash history, so you can compare previous years. And again, you can see who the work zones are, the PEDs, the bicyclists, and so on. Just a thing I thought people might be interested in. I know sometimes you might get asked, well, what's our death rate locally? And of course, one problem is that it's frequently not cited in official reports as a per capita, but yet that is how you can compare to national and international statistics is per capita. In the U.S., we tend to sort of poo-poo that and go by vehicle miles instead, making it not look quite as bad, maybe. Okay, that's it for this. And the next item on our agenda is unfinished business. And we're starting with Annie, I believe, for Safe Streets for All, a rewrite on the letter to the council that was requested at the last meeting.
Hello. So the request was to consider a letter that we are planning on sending to the mayor and to the city council members. So I took on the task of looking at the letter and seeing if I could just break it down and put it into just more what's called simple language. Because we know these groups of folks are really busy, but we got to figure out how to get our point across. So I'm just going to read the letter because there are a few adjustments that are going to be needed to made to it. But I think if we could just read it once and then just figure out what we want to do next, that would probably be the fastest. So the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission urges the city to pursue U.S. U.S. hilarious. It's supposed to be U.S. Department of Safe Streets for All Road Users grants. So an SS4A.
U.S. Department of Transportation.
US.
DOT.
Yeah, I know. I spelled the whole thing out and somehow got shortened again. That would be Grammarly, my editor. It's an app. That's why I was like, ah. Anyway, U.S. Safe Streets for All Road Users grants. BPAC has confirmed with Champaign County Regional Planning Commission that it will be shortened going forward as CCRPC, that Urbana can apply for implementation and/or planning and demonstration grants. In 2024, almost $1 million was awarded to CCRPC for supplemental planning and demonstration activities. It's supposed to say about 200,000 because it's not a million total, right?
It's very close.
I'll say about 200 or nearly.
I believe the 200,000 is accurate, though.
All right, then stick with it. My little online editor took out things for me, and I clearly missed it. 200,000 will go towards testing, also known as demonstration of safety improvements on North Lincoln Avenue between Killarney and Washer. About 800,000 will advance county-wide Vision Zero data collection and safety planning goals. The U.S. Department of Transportation National Transportation Safety Strategy is pursuing the safe systems approach to traffic management. This approach focuses on holistic, safe traffic systems designed for all road users rather than individual drivers making mistakes, which has created our current traffic crisis of 40K plus annual roadway deaths. One part of the safe systems approach is a focus on speed management. The SS4A grant process specifically approves speed management studies and plans. The grantee matches 20%, which can be in-kind services. Urbana can follow the example of nearby communities such as St. Joseph's and Savoy, which have chosen to reduce the need for police involvement in crashes by reducing speed limits. In 2021, Crystal Lake, Illinois, population 40K plus, with 64% more land area and a smaller annual budget than Urbana, reduced their speed limit to 25 miles per hour. Their city staff researched federal and state manuals and advocated for a citywide residential speed limit. Recent studies show that reducing speed limits, even without additional signage, publicity, and enforcement, reduces speed and crashes. BPAC urges Urbana to apply for a 2025 SS4A planning and demonstration grant to fund a speed management study similar to the attached example for Crystal Lake. Additional activities an SS4A grant can fund are planning and facilitating public meetings, testing temporary traffic calming measures at high-speed noncompliance or crash and conflict locations, temporary or pop-up art performances and installations for pedestrian awareness involving diverse populations, temporary pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure, safe ambassador programs for youth, complete streets education, street closures for educational activities such as slow streets, and safe routes to school support. Supporting participants, including youth, can be paid. Federal funding for the supplemental planning and demonstration grants in 2024 is $461.5 million. Every eligible application was awarded a grant in the previous 2 years. The application process is manageable by design. I'm going to say, just get rid of by design, is manageable with a one-page narrative plan and a two-page description of demonstration projects. Feedback.
I think it's good and clean and straightforward and ready to go.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I really like it's the stuff, it's the questions they would ask. Has anybody else done it? Can we do it?
Should we conclude with something like BPAC urges Urbana to apply for the grant, for the SS4A Planning and Demonstration Grant for demonstration projects to reinforce a safe and vibrant street culture with an emphasis on equity in Urbana? That's from the previous, but taking out the stuff about the plan. Yeah, just a quick, call to action at the end.
Well, it's how you know it's done.
So it's written like a letter at the beginning, but it's not really signed by anyone. Do we want to say like from BPAC or something at the end? In addition to the conclusion. Then for the last sentence, I just thought we could maybe clarify it a little bit. So it says the application process is manageable. Something like, including a one-page narrative plan. It's just not totally clear the way it's written that what is required is that we fill out the one-page narrative plan and two-page description.
Is BPAC planning to write the narrative, or are you asking the city to do that?
My understanding is we were going to support Public Works in the creation of the application.
Yeah, the request is that the city council, like they have goals, that one of their goals be to enable Public Works to apply for a Safe Streets for All grant, to make that a priority. So we probably would not write the letter unless you wanted ideas or help, but
We may want to sort of include like an offer for help. Like if they have any questions, they can, or ideas, they can ask us.
oh, sure, absolutely, that's what we're here for.
Should we maybe just kind of clarify what our role is? What is the role of BPAC in all of it? Like, we're encouraging the city council and the mayor to support the creation of this application, the submission of the application, but what is our intended role in all of this?
Well, this is for, Carmen, this is for 2025, not for this year.
Right.
And John has indicated that you guys are looking forward. So this is just to get city council support and awareness for this. John will probably bring it up himself if the opportunity arises. I don't know. But we just wanted BPAC to chime in on it, which we have on many other things.
Okay. And for your awareness, if John hasn't informed you already, we are hiring a grant consultant right now. We are reviewing the qualifications that came in last week. Our RFQ closed last week. And should be hiring someone in the next month, a firm, to help us apply for grants.
That's awesome.
Just like this one.
Did you receive that grant that John mentioned, the kind of mentoring grant? He mentioned that they applied for a grant that would somehow pair cities or something for grant mentoring. No, I can't remember the name of it. Okay.
I think I know what you're referring to. I don't remember the name of it either. It was a USDOT
Right.
initiative.
Uh-huh.
And no, we were not selected.
Okay.
Part of that. We made it
Yeah.
the first round. They were considering us, and then we weren't considered in the final round.
Yeah, okay, well, this is really awesome news. So we're really just interested in speaking up as BPAC to support, which we did for the no parking in bike lanes, for instance, or several others that I can't think of off the top of my head. But we did send a resolution to City Council last year about the same topic, and just to keep it on their radar, that this is something for them to consider, because demonstration projects, I know, for example, Sharice is interested in traffic calming in her ward. So if they had ideas for things that we could try out, I don't know how familiar you are with the SS4A, but this demonstration projects have to be temporary. Unfortunately, they're not, and they need to have some attempt at quantifying the effectiveness maybe either with a street that doesn't have them or pre and post. And so, something like speed tables or something that can be installed and potentially removed if it doesn't work out. So you're probably familiar with, and then the speed studies, I don't know if this is new to you about the Crystal Lake speed resolution. I can forward it to you. It's already been forwarded to BPAC, so I can forward it to you. As is mentioned here, the city of Crystal Lake staff undertook the analysis to do a speed study for the city, and then they wrote a resolution which the city passed, laying out all the reasons to reduce the speed limit to 25 citywide, which is interesting because we have numerous villages locally who have done that, as you know, I'm sure. But for a city that's the same size as ours, to do it was harder to find.
Do you have specific parts of the city that you want studied for this speed study, besides Sharice's neighborhood?
Yeah,
Talking-
residential is what we would be thinking, but also dense business, probably.
So for the letter, maybe finishing it like this. Every eligible application was awarded a grant in the previous 2 years. The application process is manageable. It requires a 1-page narrative plan and a 2-page description of demonstration projects. In conclusion, BPAC would like the mayor and Urbana City Council members to encourage Public Works to apply for the SS4A. BPAC would be willing to assist in any way that would, need another word, their efforts. Be willing to assist in any way that would XYZ their efforts, help their efforts. I need an adjective.
Support.
Thank you. Support their efforts. So we could do something like that. And then, thank you, BPAC. And I think it is a good idea to list members, list all the names. So, I think that's a lovely idea. I don't know, I guess that is a really good question, is do we need to be specific? Do we want to just generally say we're looking for residential, dropping residential speed limits, or do we just leave it, is it better to leave it open, or is it better to be specific, is my question?
I would say open.
Yeah, leave it open.
It's quite in the weeds to talk about specific. We in BPAC have sat through many and many a talk about the value of reducing speed. City Council has not, and I think it's just too much of a topic to.
Do we want to include any visuals with this? I know there's like the Vision Zero speed limit image, like if someone gets hit at 25 miles per hour, the chance of survival, or do we want to include anything supplementary, or just this 2-page, 13-point
I think once you start adding, it's going
letter.
to get onerous. That there's a certain real appeal to, oh, this isn't your infographic sales pitch. You just want us to apply for a grant.
I like how I ended it with, you just have to encourage people to do it. Oh, everyone on council will be like, oh, I just got to encourage people? All right.
We just need a sentence or two to wrap this up. Something like, because these opportunities for funding align so well with the city's aspirations for safer streets, BPAC strongly encourages active participation in the grant application process in the coming year and stands ready to assist in that process.
It's very exciting that it sounds like they're already working on that you're bringing
See if I can
on.
figure out-
Looking
Is
for a
that written
grants
down
person.
somewhere? Or
Wrote that, just
how do I get that from
I'll see
you?
if I can figure out how to send it to you.
Or you can just talk slowly, because these efforts,
I'll show it to you at the end of the meeting.
all right,
Old-fashioned analog.
all right, yeah. Okay, cool.
Write it on paper here, I have paper.
Yeah, oh yeah, write it on paper. Yeah, because then what I can do is update that, and that will be that. I think most people do know what US dot is. I actually think, though, I should spell that out. What's your call? US DOT? Should I spell it out?
Everybody knows what that.
Okay. Just not all the bunch of dorks here in this room. Everybody knows. Okay. All right,
I-
cool. Then that looks pretty clean. I'm not seeing any edits on that page. It's just the big grand gesture at the end. I love how you summed that up, and you said you did the positive, that's great. I think that's great.
As long as you're really clear about what it is that you want them to apply for the grant for. There are a lot of good ideas in the letter. Like,
How about to apply to the 2025 SS4A grant cycle?
but for what?
Well, you know
For-
what, that's still open to ideas. We want them to be aware that
Okay.
we've been through several cycles, and there are tons of ideas out there as to, I mean, already for this year, there have been, the first round's been announced. Tons of small cities our size have gotten $500,000. I mean, what are they doing with it? I hope that they're doing
So-
something with it. But
So would it be, my question to you, yeah, as a staff person, what's easier? Is it easier if we say, we want you to apply to do a bunch of stuff to figure out speed limits? Or is it easier for us to say, hey, we just want you guys to apply, because there's that crazy laundry list of stuff that I read off that you could possibly do. And like the other obvious thing to do is you look at what other grant winners won and you just copy and paste so you can get the same thing. So my question is, what's going to help your team more is what I'm asking.
I think it would be most helpful to have a short list of priorities from BPAC. Like if you come up with 3 things that are your top priorities, like the speed study, demonstration projects, like, raised crosswalks or whatever you want to do, just a short list and then a brief reason why. Like if there's specific crashes that you can point to or a high crash incidence rate in a specific part of town that you think that this speed study would inform, I think that would make it stronger as well.
Well, we did have that. The letter got very into the weeds.
Oh,
We
It's
had
okay.
a
It's
very
okay.
high
We
rate
can
of
make this
pedestrian
work.
mortality.
No,
It's
we can make this work. Let's I think it's important for us to come up with those 3. And do we want to come up with those 3 right now? Because did we not come up with 3 in the meeting when the 3 of us had that side meeting? Did we not come up with 3 items? Because there's the need is so great. Like let's just come up with 3 things and just get some momentum going, just so people can like sort of start seeing the issues instead of just sort of talking around. And I can make this tight. It'll literally be, I was so tempted to bullet point stuff in here, and now I'm really excited because we'll have these 3 things that are actually a bullet point.
Well, I think that John in Public Works I know that John has talked about traffic calming ideas he wanted to try. So I think we need to check with him on whether we could get, apply for funding for that. He'd mentioned some idea he had on Broadway Avenue. I'm not sure what it was, but because that's a location that's been called out several times.
What about my bailiwick of crosswalks on Washington?
Right.
Like slowing the speed limit on Washington and putting in crosswalks.
Well, again, this is where we talked about we really need John or someone from Public Works. It would be great to have them on the subcommittee to make sure we're aligning with what their wish
But
list
at this
is.
point, the point of this letter is to encourage awareness and action. You have the
Exactly.
good news, there's going to be a grants officer coming in. He gets this letter, gets it referred to him and says, what do you want? And then the conversation moves from there. So I think,
I mean, crosswalk in front of the school,
well,
like,
that's for the second conversation. I
okay.
think.
You can just, we don't have to have these set in stone. They can just be examples of your top priorities and, open to working with Public Works in the future to tailor those.
We don't have to be super specific. These are examples,
So like,
Broadway because.
so,
blah, blah.
yeah, slowing residential speed limits, adding additional crosswalks, traffic calming. Does that work?
I think so.
Where's that going to go in the letter?
My AI writing assistant Grammarly will tell me.
You mention those things many times in the letter
Yeah.
in different places. What's missing is we propose that you apply for planning and implementation grants for these 3 things. Or other additional things. Speed limit study, adding crosswalks, traffic calming measures, and trying to focus. Because they do get said several times, but then it gets diluted in kind of a
Word salads.
right, yes. So bullet points are really great. And yes, they can also always add other things, but here are BPAC's priorities that you've shared with them already, and you'd like them to take action on them. Shut up now.
Well, the good news is there's not a huge rush on this letter because we're talking about 2025.
I think we're close, though. I think I had 5 or 10 lines, the ones you're talking about, Annie, and maybe something like what I'm going to give you would
Yeah, so
Place it
traffic
on.
calming and just traffic, not speed studies, just traffic calming mechanisms. Oh, I see.
Well, a speed study is our specific goal, as we'll be going over on our goals. It's our number one goal is to see speed reduced.
So slowing speed limits is my second one.
Okay, yeah, the speed study is in support of slowing speed limits.
There was a great,
You
I
could be
forget how you,
one or
wo-
the,
how you
you
worded
might
it
be
over
safer
here.
just saying the speed study, because we haven't had an opportunity to make the case to the city council.
And then adding crosswalks painted and raised. And then the why. How much detail into why? Like, why adding crosswalks? Because we see a need in the city for, we're seeing pinch points where people are unable to cross safely? Or what are you looking for there? Anyone?
I think a concise statement about the challenges that we face here and how that would be addressed through these things.
One of the things you've talked about, Annie, is having like a pop-up signed crosswalk on Vine for the students, like enhancing the UMS crossing of Vine is something that's come up time and again.
Yeah, painted, raised, and enhanced crosswalks.
And I guess Farallon was one of the EQL projects, so that would be really nice to also enhance that crosswalk.
But do we want to get like so specific to Farallon? Is that helpful or is that not helpful? I mean, are we just trying to generally say these are our 3 things?
I don't,
or-
I'm sure that it doesn't have to be that specific in the actual grant. It's only 2 pages long, you know, but
I think you could say something like schools and parks,
yeah.
near schools and parks.
Yeah.
Near schools and
Because
parks.
various things can come up that make something unfeasible.
And then we got to figure out our why. So let me do a little thinking on how I'm going to finesse why. Because if we do the bullet point of traffic calming, slowing speed limits, adding crosswalks, and then put a why, I don't know. Have we talked this thing to death? Do we need like some space on it, or do we want to keep going?
I think we could move on. Let's bring it to the
Suppose
next
we added a
meeting.
sentence after, top of the second page, after slow streets and safe routes to school support. Matters of continuing concern for BPAC are, and then you put your 1, was it crosswalks, 2, traffic calming initiatives, 3, speed reduction. And you have it right there at the end of it.
Should we be reaching out to Safe Routes to School for where they stand on funding?
I believe that they didn't get the funding this year, but definitely they will try for next year.
Bruce, what if I sent this to you? I think you'd kill it if we sent this to you. Awesome. Let's do that. All right, Bruce, I'm going to send this to you, and then you can add some stuff, and then I'll finesse it a little more. And I think between the 2 of us, we'll come back next month with a off-the-charts letter. How are we feeling?
But concise, we're still,
Yes.
that's still. on
And
the-
understandable. Yeah,
Okay.
quick, fast, understandable. Yep.
I always also worry about the square peg thing, where, the grant criteria can morph from year to year, and if they suddenly decide a priority is this, but, oh, you said you wanted to do that, that kicks us out. So keeping it loose and flexible might be a good idea.
That's why I don't want to be super specific, like, we need exactly this. I'm like, we need all the help we can get, so whatever you get us money for, we'll be super happy. Okay, cool. So, changing topics. I presented the what was called the Sage Trail to the Arts Commission, and they were very nice about it. They loved the idea. They thought it was great. They were very different from other commissions. In that other commissions were very concerned about the trail. They were less concerned about the trail. They didn't quite understand if art was related to it or how art would work. I tried to encourage them to look at the URL that was created, the map that was created that shows that as you walk the trail, you can see art and you can see buildings, and there's small descriptions about everything. There was a nice discussion that evening about the mural, I forget the word she used for it, but it's the mural on the ground out here in the farmer's market. So there was a nice discussion about that and how Public Works kind of had to wrap their mind around like what that looked like and what the paint would look like. And they felt like that might be helpful in getting this project moving. One of the reasons that the trail is in the downtown district is because of TIF money. And so that is probably how it would be funded. I said I will present the next people I'm going to present I changed it from Sage Trail because people kept asking about Sage, and if I switch it to Urbana Meander, I don't get any questions. So I'm calling it the Urbana Meander at this point. Still open to any title you want. And I'm going to next present to the economic development folks and see what kind of feedback I get from them. As I present this, the thought that came back to me after meeting with the Arts Commission was the city would be in charge of, I kept trying to explain that the most expensive part of this trail is taking the sidewalk fund money that we have, which is $50,000, and fixing the sidewalks that are on the trail and making sure that they are up to ADA accessibility standards. That is by far the most expensive cost of the entire trail. The second most expensive cost would be 2 miles of paint. I explained that because the paint is on the sidewalk, it's not being used by cars, it's not being used by bikes. It will probably not need to be repainted for a long, long time, depending on the kind of paint that Public Works would use. And so that would the city of Urbana would be in charge of that. The trail would be overseen by BPAC, and the map would be overseen by the Urbana Public Library, and you would be able to pick up a physical map, or the digital map would be available through the Urbana Public Library, and they have a historic preservation commission that would be able to help me kind of maybe work out a route and figure out what to do. So that's sort of where the idea is currently sitting. And again, nothing is set in stone. I'm just trying to socialize the idea and trying to get people to think about it. At the end of the meeting, we discussed maybe could the trail be sort of art? Could there be a way to make it art? And I was like, well, if people are having a hard time coming up with 2 miles of paint on the ground, I don't think they're going to want to come up with 2 miles of art on the ground. So, but I'm totally down with it. And then also, I keep wanting to do a demonstration of it. So I keep wanting to just like spray chalk, like something that you could see and you could follow along so people could get the idea of what it would be like to walk on a shared path and have that experience. So I think at a certain point, that I think really is the next step, is that, but I think it's still just kind of socializing the idea for a few more minutes before we do an actual, you could also do little purple flags or something, but I don't know. I think it's more fun if it's actually just spray chalk on the street. And we also had a lot of consensus on it, and people like the idea, so we'll see what happens next. So that's where it is. Questions, thoughts, ideas?
Purple is the color then?
I'm open to any color.
Okay.
And the other thing I realized as I was putting together the presentation, I've got it now down to 8 slides, is maps. People really like maps, and this comes from, and part of the presentation I showed how when I did Imbibe Urbana and now that I do the Urbana Amble, people really like a physical printed map, and they really like a digital map. And then I said the numbers that I see on my digital Google map, it's in the double digits, thousands every time. And that is not even a set trail. And I see people doing the Urbana Amble all the time. Like I'll constantly see people in their car driving. I'll see people walking, just kind of trying to look at things and see things. And so it would be really delightful to give people an actual walking path that's actually pretty cool. That, not that the Urbana Amble isn't lovely, but it's a different experience. It's not really meant as this continuous walking trail. Not that you can't walk it, but it is. That was I said you need to know like over 20,000 views every time I put up a map. So it's an idea and people would be interested in it, and I think it would be really good for the city to have this nice trail, this nice walking trail. So.
Okay, thank you, Annie. Great update. Oh, yeah, okay. And the next item we have is, I believe, Carmen, you're going to lead a discussion of the Lincoln Avenue corridor study?
Yeah, I don't have a presentation, but I could pull up the website. Over here,
Sure,
if that's
that'd be
helpful.
great, so we can all see you equally.
Bear with me as I find the website. Okay, so I assume you're all familiar, at least somewhat familiar with the Lincoln Avenue corridor study. There was a previous presentation on it, so I'm just going to try to give you a brief update where we're at. So the public outreach phase has been completed, and RPC has analyzed all the public input that they've received. From the, I believe it's over 200 responses, scenario 1 out of 3 scenarios that were presented was the top choice. So it was about double the number of top choices for scenario 1 versus scenario 3, which was the next choice. So scenario 1 is complete bike lanes entirely on in-street, sorry. 100% in-street bike lanes, right? Scenario 3 was on-street bike lanes and then a shared use path at the south end of the street. So then going through Illini Grove, or sorry, I'm in 2. So scenario 3, going through Illini Grove and along the west side of the corridor, starting at Iowa and going down to Florida. On-street bike lanes, then the rest of the roadway. And then scenario 2 was a hybrid between them. So crossing back and forth between on-street, off-street, and then going back to on-street. So public feedback preferred scenario 1 and then 3 and then 2. Talking with our internal stakeholder group, we decided to have our traffic consultant, Lockmuller, do their own independent study of their bike experts without knowing what the public feedback was. We wanted a memo and a response from them on what they thought was the best case scenario from the standpoint of bicycle safety. And they had the same conclusion. So their memo has scenario 1 as the preference for several reasons. It remains consistent. It is the most predictable for bicycle behavior, that we know that bicyclists would then stay on the road, that if we move to a shared use path to the side, maybe a lot of them would just stay on the road anyway, and then they would be in unsafe conditions. And it's consistent with, bike paths that are around campus. I'm probably leaving a few reasons out, but we have a memo that we can share at some point with the group. So right now we're moving forward with scenario 1, and our consultant Lockmuller is doing some analysis on how that will impact the loading zones with having complete on-street bike lanes, and where we will have our bus stops. So we're working with MTD on the existing bus stops and if those need to shift in location because of this scenario. All of these scenarios have access closures still. We are still going with complete access closures on Oregon, Iowa, and Indiana. And then Vermont would be right in, right out only, as well as, and I'm sorry, I keep moving this quickly, but Nevada would be right turn only as well. And, they've produced an informal memo, but we're going to turn this into content for the website that justifies the spacing of these access points. Really these closures are based upon where the safest places are to have these mid-block crossings. So we're consolidating and enhancing the mid-block crossings here. So we're going to have fewer mid-block crossings in this scenario than we do existing, but we will have the rapid flashing beacons, and they will be placed ideally approximately around 500 feet from a signalized intersection or from another mid-block crossing. And that's based on CUAT's guidance, I believe, and NACTO guidance. So in order to have the safest mid-block crossings, that's the justification really for these access closures. But the next step is also doing some analysis on how this will impact vehicle traffic. So they're going to be providing us some information in the future on, we already know that the traffic on Busey is very low. We've got traffic counts there, that the traffic should not be impacted there significantly by the things that we're proposing on Lincoln Avenue. But then they're also going to take a look at the traffic on these side streets to make sure we don't have any negative impacts from these closures. And we'll provide that information at our next public. I don't believe we're going to have a third public meeting, but we'll at least be putting the information out publicly and soliciting a survey. Any questions on that?
How the street closures, I am all for it. I guess my question is how are we going to make this palatable so there's not like a moral panic over it?
That's what we're working through right now, because our last public meeting, the most negative responses that we received were about these access closures. So that's what we're trying to make sure is that we really are putting the appropriate message out there about why we're doing this. It's about, making these pedestrian crossings safer and, showing that we're not going to have a significant negative impact on vehicle traffic. So I think if we can do those two things, then maybe we should, calm some of those fears.
And we can, I know maybe it's too much, but we could make them arty, right? We could we can make them pretty. That's the right word for it I was looking for. Yep, make them pretty. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Another piece of this that I mentioned, we're looking at the loading zones. So putting on-street bike lanes along the entire corridor is likely going to take away most, if not all, of the loading zones. So those cul-de-sacs could also be an area where loading could be performed. It doesn't have to be a circular cul-de-sac like we've shown in here. There are all kinds of shapes for cul-de-sacs where we could have space potentially for trucks dropping off and provide loading in those as well.
that might not be a selling point for the people who are getting their street shut down.
Right.
Carmen, it's kind of a sidebar suggestion. You probably know that Madison, Wisconsin right now, which has a lot more money than we've got and a lot more people, is engaged in a drastic, I think it's a legitimate word, overhaul of its arteries for many of the same purposes, for mass transit accommodation and bike lanes. And it's like Baron Haussmann in Paris in 1870. They're going at it. And we're talking about bike lanes with serious bunkers between the lane and the traffic lane so that the Amazon Prime trucks can no longer, commandeer them. The transit loading areas are in the middle of the street. I mean, I'm talking about, it's just head-spinningly pricey and ambitious. The only thing I'm suggesting, have fun, look at their websites, see what kind of blowback they're dealing with, or whether they're just being, coup d'etat about it, and whether any of their big bells and whistles could become small ones here. I don't think we've got the room on Lincoln Avenue to do the kind of bunkers between bike lane and traffic lane
No, I didn't.
going on University Avenue in Madison.
I didn't mention that, but that's a good point to bring up, is we want as much protection of the bike lanes as possible, and we're really limited on space, at least in a large portion of this. So where we can, we're going to try to fit in at least a 1 foot painted buffer with, not bollards, delineators, right? Flexible delineators where we can, and possibly an elevated bike lane where we can't do that. So that's another step that we're stepping into as of today, speaking with our consultant, is they're going to highlight what parts we have space for, a horizontal buffer, and what space we have to do a more vertical buffer if it's going to be somewhat protected.
Speaking of space, do we have enough space to put bike lanes for both directions and also keep the traffic moving on Lincoln Avenue?
Yes, so, sorry, I left that out in the beginning. We are doing a road diet here too. So where it's 4 lanes, it's going to go down to 3, like the existing 3 lanes. So there's definitely space in that area. In the area where it's already 3 lanes, we have the striped loading zones on the side. So that's why I keep mentioning that we're going to take away the loading zones in order to fit in those bike lanes. I'm hopeful that we actually have space for additional green space as well. We have some concept plans that we showed at the last public meeting where Lockmuller had showed potential areas for more green space along the entire corridor. I don't want to say the entire corridor, along parts of it for each of the scenarios. Which brings me to another topic I wanted to bring up related to this, in that I am applying for an EPA community change grant to fund this project. I'm calling it a green and complete street. So these are huge grants. They're $10 to $20 million each for this program. I'm lumping this in with a couple other things like greening existing schoolyards at 2 of our schools, and what I'm calling green walkways, where we're filling in sidewalk gaps and adding trees and tree vacancies along those sidewalks. And so this would be a large chunk of that $10 to $20 million we're going after.
What about bioswales?
Yes, I'm going to propose those to the maximum extent practicable, because we don't know exactly where they will go yet. We'll figure that out in design, based on conflicts with utilities, we have limitations in the width of the roadway, of course, and then what can we actually maintain in the future. So conversations need to happen at Public Works about where those could go. Actually, in my past life before coming here to Public Works, I was a bioretention and permeable pavement designer and consulting for a number of years. So I'm very excited about the potential for green infrastructure. I know we have to be able to maintain it in the future.
What can we do to keep you? No, you're taking all these wonderful initiatives here. It's great. Most encouraging meeting I've been to in months. One question, the Urbana City Council, as I understand it, is currently considering a rezone of the west side of Lincoln Avenue from Main Street up to University to go for higher density development up there. Is that a variable in your equation? Is that something that's going to impact what's going on Lincoln?
That is not part of this.
Okay.
And as far as I know, I don't expect any impact on, the traffic numbers and counts that our consultant has used for this from that. Like, I guess there is the potential for more traffic with a higher density development there, but
I would imagine more bike traffic. And would they have bike lanes up there as well then, eventually?
Yeah, and it would be
I'm
not
not sure.
adding, if you add dense development, you just don't add parking. If you don't, it's very straightforward. You just don't add car parking.
That sounds great, but whether they're going to go for that as a restriction.
Well, it was part of the discussion. There's, part of this corridor has large fraternities and sororities that are currently abandoned because fraternities and sororities, folks don't want to live in those group houses anymore like that. And so there was a large discussion a few years back about trying to see if we could get businesses on the first floor, maybe small housing on the second floor, or maybe, divide them up into a bunch of small businesses. And a lot of the discussion in the community was parking, parking, cars, 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 parking, parking, cars, cars, cars. And then it was also, why can't an individual just buy the big house and turn it into a beautiful house for themselves? And so that was sort of a lot of, nonsense discussions. But at the end of the day, they did get through a certain type of zoning. But the one thing that was really clear that I kept trying to make clear in these discussions is just because you have a Starbucks there doesn't mean you have to have a drive-through, doesn't mean you have to have 25 car parking spots. You can leave the exact footprint you have. You put in a Starbucks on the first floor, you're going to have a dumpster that's empty, you're not going to have loud parties at night, and you're not going to have additional car traffic because you did not add more additional spaces for cars to move through that space. It's the same when I would just say, Cafe Paradiso, does that bother you? Because that's what we're talking about.
Annie, that all makes sense, but there's a world of difference between the east side of Lincoln Avenue as a community and the west side. The east side, the Woona people don't want any kind of development. I know I lived over there for quite a while. And any kind of work along Lincoln Avenue brings out the quills. The west side, as you know, is a much less organized, underdeveloped area where a developer might be able to successfully advocate for underground parking, for, other amenities.
Or no parking, that's what Champagne's currently doing.
Right, but
Champagne has allowed developers.
This is a matter of contention, and when you're designing, a corridor, whether or not there's going to be, underground parking you ever biked in Chicago, you know what happens when the underground parking garage opens up. That could be a complicating factor when you're trying to design for bikes. That's,
kind of getting off
I'm not
topic
trying to
here.
kick dust up here. That's something we're going to have to keep an eye on as to whether this gets approved and how.
But I think focusing on this and making this as green and gorgeous as we can is going to generate momentum in that direction. So it's going to mean that people are more inclined to do bikes and buses. And so it will mean there will be less contention.
Right.
So let's focus on getting this done.
So, I have a few questions. So for the access closures, are they going to be like modal filters where bikes can go through?
yes.
Okay, cool, that's great. One of our big questions, it was actually not about going up and down or north or south on Lincoln, but crossing for cyclists specifically at Iowa. And I don't know if you guys have thought about that. It's it's kind of a tricky situation because if we have the RFBs, the rapid flashing beacons for pedestrians, that's great. But for the cyclists, at least the current situation is that oftentimes you roll into that intersection either from the path coming from the west or coming down Iowa from the east, and you just kind of have to wait for the traffic to clear, and there's no mechanism in place for cyclists to cross Lincoln, and it's a very important connection between the university and all of Urbana, basically, or the rest of Urbana. During our last meeting, we discussed the idea of maybe cyclists just, dismounting and using the pedestrian crossing, and there's a lot of opposition to that idea. Cyclists like to just be able to ride their bikes, not to have to walk. Well, I'm wondering if there were any ideas discussed, and if not, that's okay, but I just kind of want to plant that idea in your guys' heads so that we can try and figure something out.
I know that our consultant, the bicycle group in our consulting firm, Lockmuller, recognized that this was a bike route through the city. But in their analysis so far, it's just the recommendation that the approach at Iowa Street be closed to vehicular traffic and maintain full access to pedestrians and bicycles. So I know that doesn't quite answer your question,
Yeah.
but I know there's been reference in here too about having a bicycle crossing and a pedestrian crossing, and it was a question that I had for something. to look into
Yeah.
is how is it? How
Yeah,
can it
it-
be both?
And I guess related to that is the idea that the rapid flashing beacons, the RRFBs, would be manually activated by a button.
Yeah.
And then if that's the case, could we basically just tack on a button for the cyclist that activates the same flashing beacons that are at the pedestrian crossing at the same intersection or nearby, I guess?
I mean, I guess my question is aren't you imagining that these intersections are going to look like the one in front of the Granger Library?
I guess I'm not familiar with that intersection, but
They have the rapid flashing beacons. It
Uh-huh.
goes across the entire.
It's on Springfield Avenue.
Yeah, you're not asked to cross on the left or the right. You're allowed to cross right through the middle of the street, right through the
Uh-huh.
middle of the intersection. And they have they do have bag buttons there that you push
as a cyclist.
as a pedestrian or a cyclist. But often because cars are already going so slow, you often don't even have to push that button. You can just cross, and it's very relaxing. So
Not
right-
currently the conditions on
Oh,
Lincoln
no, the
Avenue,
current,
but-
the current condition right now is people are throwing fingers at you when you're trying to cross that
maybe
street.
not
It's
that.
very aggressive and bad. So I think putting in these, there's I'm seeing like multiple ways to slow. But that's my understanding is that it will be right in the middle. And then that way you'll be able to use that cutaway that's already there right now. Right now, when you try to use that cutaway, you're afraid the car coming at you is going to hit you. And right now you have to, if you're biking down that street, you have to cross over, get on the sidewalk, wait patiently and hope somebody stops until you actually push your bike into the intersection and then they finally stop. Anyway, we don't need to
So-
go into it.
Question for clarification, are the rapid flashing pedestrian signals only signs on either side of the road, or are they in the crosswalk themselves? Because I remember the ones on Springfield 8 years ago, and I remember them lasting for about 2 years. Are they even active anymore? So what is being proposed here?
If I'm understanding you correctly, we're not proposing anything in the road. These are the
Okay.
sites, like the Springfield Avenue one is currently. And Vine Street also has this rapid flashing beacon in Urbana.
So,
Vine and Windsor, sorry.
So yeah, just to reiterate, if there's any way that we could implement some sort of mechanism for cyclists to stop the flow of traffic like a pedestrian would, then that would be ideal.
Okay, I can't speak to that. I'll run
Yeah.
that by our consultant, but I understand what Annie is saying. Where in Springfield, when you're a driver, oftentimes there's so many pedestrians that have already pushed the button, and then you know where the bicyclist is coming from. That's what I envision happening here, is that I know where I can look when I'm driving down Lincoln to see the bicycle coming. Whereas now, if they're going down the sidewalk, it's hard to know with all the crosswalks where someone's going to cross.
And right now, there's no stop bars. So the cars they don't know where to stop themselves, so they stop themselves 12 inches from you. So I would definitely just check out, I would suggest checking out the one on Springfield, just seeing how it feels and how you like that experience.
I know what you're talking. Yeah, I mean that's a much more narrow road. So it's kind of a different situation, but
This will get narrower.
okay. Well, it's not going to be 2 lanes, which is what Springfield is, right? So, but anyway, I think we convey that idea. I think the only other thing I had, if we're going to have protection on the bike lanes, how's it going to work with bus stops?
We're still figuring that out.
And I guess, so when we were researching stuff for the SS4A grant application, one thing I saw was there's some temporary infrastructure that was for sale somewhere, where you have essentially like a raised platform, kind of like if you had a section of the bike path being raised like it would have been a raised bike path, just for the purpose of providing a connection between like the sidewalk and then like a platform area for a bus to pick someone up. I don't know if we have enough room for that, but there's something like that we could think about where the cyclist can basically ride over it, but it also serves as like a path or platform for people getting on the bus to directly access the bus without the bus having to come into the space of the bike lane, basically.
And because you're not thinking of having it be the way it is on campus where it's raised and then the cyclists go behind the bus.
No, like you say, there's not enough room for that, but yeah, I'm probably not explaining this very well, but it's like a platform that you build that sits basically on top of the bike lane that cyclists can kind of come up, sort of like a speed bump or something. And they go over it, and then whenever the bus comes to pick up someone, it just stops right in front of that platform, basically, and then people can
So
walk
it
up
actually
and-
stops in the traffic lane?
Yes,
Rather
yeah.
than pulling over?
Yeah.
So it blocks traffic?
Yes, and I don't know if that's possible or not, but yeah, that's
We are
the idea behind it.
working with MTD to consider bus pull-offs, so I know that's not what you're
Yeah,
proposing,
okay.
but they would
Yeah.
be crossing the bike lane, but
Yeah.
then moving out of it to
Okay.
stop.
So probably what would have to happen is, for those bus stops, there wouldn't be any protection on the bike lane for that portion.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
what you're suggesting is basically a raised platform, so when people get on or off the bus, they're actually at height, so you don't have to have that irritating moment when the bus goes deet, 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 and then they're opening up the thing and deet, deet, deet,
Yeah.
deet. So it's a lot faster. It's another reason why you do the raised platforms. It's a lot faster for loading and offloading the bus.
But basically, would the bike lane then be the same thing as when the people were getting on and off the bus?
Yeah, so cyclists would have to stop for the people boarding the bus. But that's not gonna. It sounds like that's not gonna happen. So maybe we don't have to
Yeah,
worry about
yeah.
it. So the bus will be turning into the bike lane when it's picking up people, and yeah, that's okay. Awesome. I think you answered all my other questions. So yeah, great. Now this is. I was really happy to hear that scenario 1 was chosen and that we're thinking about protection, because that was my main concern. Was, well, if we go with scenario 1 and they're not going to be protected at all, is that actually the best scenario? So yeah, I really hope that we can make it work. Yeah, and will they feel comfortable on it? Yeah, thank you.
And is there any scenario where is there any and this is just going to be my native plant geeking out on you here, but is there any scenario where instead of like the bollards, those plastic bollards, people are using some sort of green thing for protection? So like, planting grasses, like, native grasses or something in that space as a protection between the where the cars are and where the bikes and pedestrians are.
We had not considered that. I think there isn't space for that. To me, that almost makes it more of a shared use path then. I mean, then you'd be adding additional curbs, right, between the road, the green space, the bike lane, and then the sidewalk.
I guess I'm almost thinking of like those thin planters, and then
Yeah.
people put plants in the thin planters, but I don't know. It was just a thought. I don't have no idea.
think we have space
That-
for
that
that.
sounds
since we
like a
don't have the
perfect-
race.
SS4A demonstration grant to me. The only problem being, can we get it to grow fast enough to, yeah, and
Well,
is it,
Yeah.
Oh, I had one other comment, which is that I'm actually super happy about the access control limitations, or like stopping traffic, because I live on Orchard Street, so I'm pretty close, and there's a lot of cars that are just driving through the neighborhood because they want to either come from Lincoln or go to Lincoln, and I'm all in favor of closing access to cars. on
also
some of
the
streets.
crash statistics at some of those intersections is like number one in the CU area. It's just amazing how many crashes there are. And, you know, a lot of times there haven't been peds killed there lately, but one car hits another car because he stopped for the ped and the other car didn't see it. So it's just awesome for the drivers. I
Right,
mean,
yeah.
it's not that peds have been getting mowed down there. I don't think they have been. It's more like drivers are hitting each other. So this is like a super benefit for them if they can just see that.
Right, it should reduce a lot of those interactions.
All
especially
the
from
stress
left
and all the
turns.
crashes and, yeah, it's just, this is such good news. This is really fantastic. Is there an opportunity to, because I know this is, you know, we don't have funding yet and it's probably out a little bit. Is there an opportunity to try the delineators using an SS4A grant, for instance? That would be a no-brainer. I mean, they would give us the money immediately. The bollards, they're plastic bollards.
I
They
mean,
have
the-
flexible ones that go down if a bike hits it. I saw quite a number of these in DC.
Potentially. I'm going to include everything in this project in the EPA grant that I'm applying for this month.
So
so-
when would that be announced?
They're accepting applications on a rolling basis until November 21st, I think.
Oh, okay, so it's pretty soon.
And they want
Mhm.
applications in as soon as possible because I heard today that they've only received 100 applications so far and they expect to give out 150 and each one at $10 to $20 million each. So they're really pushing their consultant and Dinah, who's the technical assistance consultant helping municipalities like us that need help applying for things like this, to get applications in now in the coming weeks.
Does that effort
So-
benefit from a letter of support from us?
If I can fit it into the application. They're very limited on the page number and specific about the attachments. But yes, if I
Fine,
can fit
so-
it in, I will ask for a letter. It would need to come quickly, though. No, the mayor
Normally,
the
the
mayor offered a
requester writes the letter and we sign it.
Who writes it?
The requester
Oh,
might
okay.
write the letter
Oh,
and
okay,
we'll sign
yeah,
it.
well-
Yeah, we don't expect to know nearly as much about the project as you.
Mayor Marlin also offered to include a letter of support. but-
Yeah, I mean, there's one thing I've learned about being in this city is people are willing to, like MTD, like you can easily get people to sign on to these projects. And I think that's really helpful for folks looking at the grant to realize, oh, wow, you have 15 different organizations already in place that are willing to support and help get this project going. So, yeah, if there's any way to just sort of lay out all the partners that are willing to work with it, which I suspect you probably have to anyway. But anyway,
Right,
that's
we
great.
have, I should mention, we have formal partners in here. Our statutory partner is Prairie Rivers Network. And then our collaborating entities are the school district, because I mentioned the greening to schoolyards, that's Leal and King. The university, working with facilities and services because of this project. And who am I forgetting? Oh, RPC, of course.
Well, I think this is just really fantastic. As I said, I think everybody's more than relieved. We're delighted. Yeah.
This is definitely going to make things better. There's no question about it.
And we will be willing to help at farmers markets or whatever to spread the word if it's necessary to help promote this. Do you want to stay up there for the reports from staff?
I
Or
have
do you
notes
have
from
anything?
John, I gotta grab.
Oh,
that,
okay.
So I'll just do that from over there.
Okay.
What we can do is we can be at the farmer's market and we'll have little cards like this and we'll talk about that. We'll put artwork on them and then we'll say, this is what will be blocking the street. And you can draw artwork and you can make your own little street block.
Okay, so I'm going to be reading John's notes. If you have questions on these, I might be able to answer, but otherwise I'll need to relay them to him. All right, EQL sidewalk locations are under construction. They started last Tuesday, the 9th, at Geraldine and Highland neighborhood. Next, they're going to move to Division Street. EQL streetlights are going to be purchased soon. We're finalizing the purchase of over 70 streetlights and poles using a warm temperature for lights in residential neighborhoods of 3,000 Kelvin. We'll order lights and poles and then get construction contract out to bid. ITEP projects are in design for Florida Avenue and Baker's Lane paths. Mentioned earlier, the Park District holding the Weaver Park Master Plan open house on Thursday night from 5:30 to 7. John will be there at that, at Dr. Preston Williams Elementary. John will be present to discuss the Baker's Lane path. The alignment for Baker's Lane path has been straightened and shifted to the east compared with previous versions to avoid a waterway crossing and minimize impacts to trees. No change in termini on Washington Street and Main Street. New sidewalks in design in Cunningham Avenue TIF, shared use path south side of Country Club Road and Perkins Road from Gulf View to city limits west of Carroll Avenue, and from city limits east of Eastern Avenue to Rowena Drive near the dog park. New sidewalk south side of University Avenue from Maple Street to existing sidewalk in front of MTD. Lincoln Avenue North, Washer to Killarney design is underway. In addition to evaluation of a road diet to 3 lanes, design will compare alternatives of on-street bike lanes versus separated path on the west side of the street. Second EQL program is being developed now. John is using the annual action plan community needs survey from our grants division to allocate $1 million in budget to types of infrastructure based on how frequently they were identified as a need in that survey. That's what I got.
The Lincoln between Killarney and Washer is that how has he found a way to expend the SS4A money to do this? Is he comparing the on-street versus the, what was it that you said? One was, off-street, yeah.
Yeah, compare alternatives in design on the on-street bike lanes versus separated path on the west side of the street.
So, but that's only theoretical. It's not with paint on the ground.
I'm not sure.
Well, there isn't a multi-use path there at the moment, right? So I assume it's,
Just theoretical.
yeah, similar to what was done for Lincoln Avenue, perhaps.
Yeah, because I know there was a question at the last meeting that we discussed that he might not be able to meet the the federal
right.
NEPA requirements for a year, something like a year, which makes you wonder whether the project would, well, we don't have funding yet for actually constructing the project, as I understand it, so he's still in design based on other funding.
Yeah.
But he has the SS4A funding, which, whether that can be spent or not.
My understanding was that the NEPA process is requiring analysis of the entire project design before allowing us to move forward with that temporary change, the painting.
I see.
So the
So perhaps
full
it's,
study for NEPA may end up being more costly than what they're giving us as a grant. So.
well, unless the full study has to be done anyway, but,
It wouldn't if it wasn't using federal dollars. This is a federal requirement.
okay. Okay, and the last, is that it? Any other questions? Okay, then the last item on our agenda is the goals, which everyone should have on their packet on the last page for a quick review. And I'm just going to pass out One thing that John mentioned is, by the way, setting up actual goals for BPAC was John Zeman's idea that we come up with this, and this is the second year that we've had goals, I believe. Maybe the third. Kara Dudek from the Park District really helped us with the first year of getting that together. But one thing John pointed out is that fiscal year 24 is basically already over, and it says here goals for fiscal year 24, and he suggested that we switch to the calendar year for that, and instead have this be calendar year 24, and then present a annual report to City Council about February. He said would be good in line with their budget when they're starting to figure out their budget priorities, and then. And I think that, so that means we would want to finish an update for the goals, if indeed we even change them. I mean, the City Council runs on a 2-year goal calendar. We could too. But if we want to change them, we'd want to do that, say, probably November, by November's meeting, which is when this one was actually established, was last November. So in effect, we were basically doing the fiscal year anyway, or the calendar year anyway. So we would sort of officially change that to the calendar year. That's one item. The second item is just I just passed this out now to give us an opportunity to start thinking about where we are on these goals. If we're happy with them, we don't have to make a decision tonight on anything. We could do it next time. I really appreciated last year how John just brought it to a closure and posted it up. And I think we could have easily gone on for 3 more meetings at that time. And John was just like, this is it, it's done. We had a survey and he posted it. And we've managed just fine, I think, with that. So that's great to see you don't have to beat something to death. Okay, so if we look at these goals, speed, I'll just go really quickly, and if you want to say something, I'll leave a little space for you to say something. Speed reduced to ranges, I think we've been working on that. We were going to urge the City Council. Quite honestly, the City Council has had so much on its plate for the last couple years, it just didn't seem to me like the time to really try pushing it. In October 2021, is when the City Council, we started making presentations to the City Council about Vision Zero, of which speed management is a #1 priority now. It was a little bit less so then, but it has really risen in the national consciousness since then. And that's quite a bit of effort for everybody to get presentations together explaining why we need to be there. And we have not, frankly, since the pandemic, there have been so many other issues on their plate. And in a town like this where we have essentially 2 fatalities a year, one being a pedestrian and one being a car. And so some years we have 0, but other years we have 2. It just has a lot more impact if you talk to them in a year we've had 2 than in a year we've had 0, even though it's quite consistent overall over the time period. So I think
the main adjustment I would want would be a 20-mile, I think what people are going for now is 20 miles per hour.
You're
because
absolutely
at
right,
25, everyone's driving 32. So at 20, everyone's driving 25. So that would be my only suggestion if we're going to start, again, socializing this concept of residential speed limits, just 20 mile per hour, 20 is plenty. Residential speed limits would be my only suggestion and update for that.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, next item, Florida Avenue and University Avenue. Florida Avenue is in design, University Avenue is in design. I hopefully will get opportunities to look at that and comment on that. We've been as active as we can be on it. Washington Street speed issues addressed. This was referencing the crosswalks, Annie, and stop signs that you'd like to see.
And they have speed, what are they called, where they give you feedback? They have the feedback.
Oh, yes, that's really wonderful that they put up the
Yeah.
What are those called? The speed signs.
Are
There's
we all
an
spacing
official
it?
name
Yeah.
for that.
Anyway.
Yeah, those are, I love
Those,
those.
those are, yeah, they're, and, you know, people I know on the street who live there, they like them, they talk about it, they do want crosswalks, in certain sections. But they're happy to see that there, and, they do say that sometimes they go off, because if it goes over 50 miles per hour, they just turn them off. So people are still, you know, driving excessive speeds with them, but I do think it's a good,
What do you mean they turn off?
if you're like trying to, let's say you're driving a car and you want to see how, if you can get it, if you can get the feedback thing to get up to 60, 70, 80, 100, they just, I think that
Set so that they don't turn off.
they just go to nothing.
They won't register anything
Oh, they
over
don't
50.
register a speed that high. Is
Yeah.
that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Because, just so people don't do really stupid stuff like try
Do
to
you
do
know
80.
if those are doing speed, are those doing speed counts at all, Carmen?
On Washington Street? I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I know it's not valid science data because when people see one of those, they'll usually slow, but it still would be interesting. It would, the measurement device would be changing what's being measured, so that wouldn't be very valid, but it would be interesting. Okay, that's great, Annie. It sounds like things are moving ahead. Vine Street issues, again, something that we think the SS4A grant could help with is the crosswalks that are mentioned there. The city getting around website. Carmen, do you know if there's any website updates coming up? We've heard about it for years.
It's still in progress.
Okay. We might want to make this calendar year 25, 26. East Main Street resolution, that's on me to look at. I did get some information from Bill Brown. Unfortunately, there was no resolution. He made a presentation to City Council and pointed out that we would like to see the KRT study alternative to it was called, which was a multi-use path on the south side of Maine to be re-looked at. And that would be connecting with the Baker's Lane trailhead there. And that was because of the death of Tonya Barnett there at Dewey, which was extremely tragic. And there is no sidewalk there. So having a multi-use, those of you who've been with BPAC a long time remember this. There was a multi-use path as one of the alternatives for the KRT trail, but they went with the Smith Road alternative, I believe, and then connecting up from Baker's Lane and from the trailhead. Is the trailhead considered to be Weaver Park? Or is the trailhead where it's?
It's considered Weaver Park.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, that's when we say trailhead, we mean Weaver Park then. Okay, so there's I know the planning is to go from Weaver Park to Smith Road, but we were concerned about the people who have no sidewalk going between Weaver Park to, where KRT comes out now, because they're shopping at Aldi's, shopping at Walmart, and walking in the street. And there's also bus stops there, which people actually cross University Avenue to get to those bus stops from Behringer Commons. So, of course, they probably wouldn't want to cross twice. We would want to see a sidewalk on the north side too. And so there's a lot there. When he presented this, there was a lot of discussion about the properties that would have to be purchased, how much that would cost, and there was no real conclusion. So I'm not quite sure just how to try and get this, which is somewhat informal because we never had a resolution, added to the bike and pedestrian master plans.
And I don't know who I was talking to, but as we all know, across the street from Weaver Park, I believe, is an abandoned rail line, and they were going to turn the abandoned rail line, was that the Solo Cup one, and turn that into the bike path that would
That is
get
the
you-
plan, yeah, Norfolk
Okay.
and Southern, yeah.
Yeah. And somehow, I forget who I was talking to, and they're like, oh no, we're getting money for this and we're doing it. And I was like, what?
Yeah, they are. They're really moving ahead on that. I'm sure Keenan probably knows more about it.
I don't know too much about it. I don't focus on the KRT as much. I'm more of Weaver and Prairie, but that does sound correct that they're acquiring that land over there, or at least trying to, I believe. Yeah.
And so then wouldn't that become the space where the people who are going to and from like Walmart and everything else, you would be there, right?
I think that's the idea, yes.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
And it'd be amazing too, because like, for so many reasons, it'd be great.
But they'd have to walk down to Smith Road then from like Dewey. They'd have to walk down to Smith to get up to that, because I don't think there's an access other than Smith Road, is there?
No, but I believe, I was with John and Derek Liebert, and I think they're thinking about adding in a crossing across Main Street right by Weaver. So it would be, I don't know, maybe 100, 200 feet down from the trailhead that would go across Main Street. And that would be flashing beacons, of course, so.
And I'm, of course, still completely obsessed with getting people to downtown Urbana safely. You know, if you're an 8-year-old riding a bike by yourself, or 6-year-old even, riding a bike by yourself to downtown Urbana. So when we get that, we will get great economic development out of the KRT.
That's wonderful. I know this has been on your radar for a long time, Annie, and I'm just not sure what to do. I don't think we can get this added to the addendum since I don't have an official resolution, but rather kind of discussion. And so I will send the letter forward to the Park District and to the Forest Preserve and the city, just the city, although the city knows about it, but I'll just send it to you for your
There's no
information.
SS4A scenario where connecting the KRT to downtown Urbana.
There's what?
There's no SS4A scenario where connecting the KRT to downtown Urbana.
LRTP, the Long Range Transportation Plan, which I'm going to go over in just a second,
Would there be
does have that, yes.
grant? What I was asking is it something we can, is grant money, would the SS4A pay for something like that?
Only if you actually, that would be an implementation grant you're referring
Be
to, I think.
temporary.
And those are, they're looking to reduce traffic fatalities. I don't think that would qualify.
There-
And then,
There is a grant open right now, I believe it's with USDOT, called Reconnecting Communities Grant, I think. And I think that could be a potential opportunity for the KRT. I shared it with Derek a while back, but it was when the grant wasn't open. So maybe that's something for him to revisit.
wow, that really sounds like something to follow up on, because that's exactly what we're trying to do. Yeah, that would be wonderful. And then speed. Okay, anything else? Oh, the Lincoln Avenue Corridor Study. Yay! I think we're really doing fantastic on that one. So I guess I see a lot of room for hope here. I think things are going well. But we still have plenty of work to do. I don't think we're going to be done by this calendar year. And then the next one, state lobby to return speed setting to communities. The bill that I mentioned last time was introduced in February 2023 by a Chicago state representative named Bucknell. I can't remember his name. Anyway, he ran for mayor, actually. Buckner, I think. And I did a research on how a bill becomes law, and it's really quite intimidating with a lot of lot of dead ends. And I think that has hit a dead end, but I don't think they don't officially declare it a dead end, because there are these bills that pass at midnight on the last day of the session,
I think
as we all
Schoolhouse
know.
Rock did a really good job explaining how a bill becomes a law.
Who did?
Schoolhouse Rock.
Oh, okay. Anyway, this did get a second reading on the floor, which I find encouraging, and an amendment was offered, and I did a lot of research to try to figure out what the amendment was, but I think the amendment related to the population to which this would apply, so that it was for Chicago, although that's just a rumor. I couldn't find the confirmation on the web, but then it goes back to committee, and that's where it is at present, and the session ended May of 24. The sessions are 2 years long, so that bill is dead for now. But it got a number of sponsors, and I'm hoping that something will happen. So it wasn't the right time yet for us to lobby the state. But actually, I did find when I was searching my email that I had gotten a thing saying, contact this legislature. And actually, I think I did contact, just researching it. I just hadn't opened that Ride, Illinois letter. So we'll have to see what happens next year. And that's a future goal. MTD representation to BPAC. Joshi, you're from MTD. We just don't have it in our bylaws that we officially need an MTD person, and we'd like to get that done maybe during a slow month. Write something up and get that put in our bylaw. Because right now we have a park district, we have a school district, who else is, and a city engineer or public works representative is required.
Well, and we have the university, whether required or not, but. Yeah.
I'm trying to think, are they required? Yeah, I think that they are. But we don't have PACE required, which we would probably want to add as well. So maybe that'll be when we're not, don't have a crammed agenda. We did add a youth representative, and so we know how to change a bylaw because we did it for that. Unfortunately, they haven't been knocking down our doors to get seated on BPAC. I can't imagine why not. Wayfinding and pedestrian access, this is something Nancy suggested. Access to parks, and gave an example of the difficulty of getting to Crystal Lake Park from across Broadway there behind JJ's. For instance, it's a offset curb there. Working on hoping that will be remedied in the future. I think we may have, you were here, I think, when we talked about that earlier.
Yeah, we're doing some research on wayfinding. We don't have an exact plan right now, but as soon as we get there, you'll definitely know.
Okay, we'll keep that on the list. And then SS4A grant, which we're working on right now. The Vibrant Tourist Trail, which is now called the Urbana Meander. By the way, I just love that name because it sounds like a river instead of, sage, which sounds sort of deserty. So that's great. Long-range transportation plan. I pass these things out that I'm sure you guys are dying to attach to your refrigerator or car. Just to remind you that the survey is due by the end of this month, and I did the survey today, and it's really cool to do. It takes some time because you have to look at these maps that show all the potential projects for roads that they can think of right now. Obviously, more will come up, but roads and bike projects, and so the maps are online, and it's got all the projects numbered, and you go through and you pick for different time periods. What's your top? It's very simple in that you have to choose just two, and there's going to be like a dozen or more projects you have to choose from. But in doing so, you become familiar with all these projects that they're thinking about. So this is a very awesome site, and they've got it broken down in pretty cool ways as to the type of project. For example, bike and ped projects, lighting is listed first, all these lighting projects. And then, sidewalk projects and shared use paths and bike lanes and so on. It's, no, they don't have bike lane projects. It's shared use path, I guess. No, they do have bike lanes. Bradley Avenue, Carver to Market. Very few bike lanes, most are bigger. But what I had no idea is the KRT is looking at having a City of New Orleans spur, or maybe a trail going all the way down. I don't know, maybe it's gonna connect to something, but I had no idea there was actually a City of New Orleans trail in the future. And I thought that was pretty exciting, as well as trails heading off towards Monticello.
Is that the live freight and Amtrak?
Yes, I think that would be live. I don't think we're going to be taking the tracks out of Amtrak's hands, or rather, I'm sorry, Canadian National.
So it would be a rail next to trail.
Right.
Sounds
Which
like a fabulous idea.
On my trip this summer in May, I did bike along many live tracks, and it's actually very doable.
It is getting late.
Yeah. So that's pretty forward thinking, but I'm just giving you an idea that this is worth doing. You need to do it by the end of July to have, at least to have it count, or they may have probably take it down by then. So you should be looking at, because I think the groundwork was pretty well laid, and it was waiting on the MCOR project, right? Finishing the Green Street in through Urbana. Any ideas that we should, any ideas that seem to be missing to anyone here, just off the top of your head? You can think about it for next meeting. Okay, I think that's great. I think we probably got plenty on our plate for now. Thank you. 2050. Again, just be sure to put 2050, because you're going to see long-range transportation plans from all over the country and all kinds of time periods. And so you want to put 2050 and see you in there somewhere.
An announcement. This weekend is the Urbana Amble garden and art tour, and it is July 20th and 21st from sunup to sundown. You can find more information at go.illinois.edu Urbana Amble. There, you website and sign up, and you will get an email next year, and that's probably about all you'll get from that. It's very low. It's a totally low stakes, low key sort of thing. For cyclists who are listening, there are three. There are three on the digital map. You will find three different homes that are on the outer edges of Urbana that will welcome you on Sunday, and there will be lemonade. There will be iced tea. One person even suggested that if you biked out there, they would have something for your feet, to like some sort of water foot thing. I don't know. She's a cyclist, and so I will be sharing that information out there. But the other thing to know is there's something called gardener hours, and the gardener hours are when actual people will be out and you can talk to them. And there's macrame, and there's art. Crystal Lake is on here. The Anita Purvis Center has an art show up with some pollinators. There is community gardens. There are home gardens. It's just a good time. And so if you get the chance, just try to just go to that website and just go to one or two places. You have ambled. You have officially ambled. So that is you want to officially amble. That's important to do. All right.
This probably should have gone in the staff report area, but just wanted to report that the planning division took the B3U campus, University Business District zoning text amendment to Plan Commission last Thursday. This is an attempt to revitalize the B3U zoning district, which is north of Green Street and west of Lincoln Avenue, south of University Avenue. It was originally designed to promote mixed use, so commercial, residential, etc. It pretty much turned only into residential, and that was primarily because campus took their research park down south and did not do it in this area. So we're doing things like exploring reduction and or elimination of minimum parking requirements, reducing and eliminating required yards, so bringing buildings closer to the street and so pedestrians can interact with them. Even though car parking will be eliminated or reduced, there would now be required bicycle parking, which was a loophole or something we didn't consider in, say, our B4 downtown business district, which has eliminated car parking, but because bicycle parking is calculated as a percentage of required car parking, bike parking was never required. People might still provide it, but it wasn't a requirement. So we're fixing that for the new, we're calling it the campus mixed-use business district. We're also looking at things like going a bit more on a form-based design, so getting rid of floor area ratio maximums and required open space minimums, but doing things like for residential uses, you would be required to landscape in the front yard. So it's we think it's really good text amendment. It will be going back to Plan Commission this Thursday, and then it will be going to Committee of the Whole and City Council. So feel free to check it out on the website, read it, send comments to planning@urbanaillinois.us, and we will share those comments with, Plan Commission if you do it by this Thursday, or with City Council and Committee of the Whole. And so we hope that this will get higher density, better development in this area, which will bring more people walking and biking in the campus town and potentially eventually downtown area.
And is it too late to get BPAC support on this, or would you be coming back for it later, or do you want us to do something?
If you wanted to do comments or a letter of support in the next 2 weeks, that would be great. I don't see how it could be done, but individuals can certainly submit comments. Thanks. The packet went out, so it is available on the city's website for this Thursday's Plan Commission meeting.
It's 9 o'clock, so I will send an email out for future agenda items, and we already have Sarthak is going to talk about the bike master plan in the next meeting. So that's okay with everyone. This meeting is adjourned.